Hello and good day to all friends. I am Mojtaba Rasti from the Thales team, and today, June 3rd, 2025, I am here with you to analyze Bitcoin using the Thales Market Screener tool. Please note that these analyses are for educational and informational purposes only, and if you use them to take positions in the market, the responsibility for any profit or loss will be entirely your own. Now, a downward movement has occurred. This did not happen from anywhere else. It was from the same peak we saw yesterday, which was around 111,200, and from there we started moving downward. Now, we've hit, in fact, the lower edge of that ascending channel. You can see, we've hit the lower edge of the ascending channel, and for now, the effects of this event, well, we've made contact with it. We're seeing support here, similar to this time, and this time. We need to see whether this support will be strong enough to pull the price back up again or not. Right now, the candlestick patterns forming here could be interpreted as showing support. At least, that's what can be taken from the candlestick that's currently forming. Support is visible here. Candlestick patterns suggest it may hold. The last candlestick nearly formed a hammer, and the current one is still forming. Because, well, technically, the shadow should be at least 2 to 3 times the size of the body, and we can't really say that's the case here. But still, it's basically a sign of a possible price reversal to the upside. Alright, let's move on and analyze further. Let's see what we can gather and understand from the current market situation, starting from the very beginning of today and continuing up to this very moment in time. For tomorrow's expiration, November 4th, well, for November 4th, 2,169 Bitcoins have been traded in the form of 1,433 auctions contracts for tomorrow. And the result is that, overall, what we're seeing is a call sell, with the ceiling set at 69,600. So, up to around here, actually, at 109,700, we could see a bounce upward. There's a fair value gap created here, which makes sense, and with a reversal, we could fill this fair value gap. That's the takeaway up to this point. If we move the slider forward, the point that comes up is that, starting from here, you can see that from this point, the sum of our trades turns into a short straddle. The downward movement also finds a range. As you can see here, it's not supposed to drop all the way down. Look, the bottom of the move is at 150,000, the bottom is 150,000, 150,000 and 230,000, and the top of the move is 188,000. Right now, there are signs of an upward move forming. With this shadow of the green candle, we went up to 167,000. So, up to this point, we've pretty much come down and then bounced back up. As we mentioned, these patterns also suggest the possibility that we might come down and fill this gap, like the FEG gap, up to around 109,500. So, the downward movement, which for now we can say is still part of the plan, could go as low as 105,000. Up to this point, the bottom that this curve shows, if we process it in the database and look at it with 1,158 Bitcoin, you'll see that from the very beginning, the curve is volatile. The bottom is still at 157, the top at 109,350. And here, if you look at it processed in the database, it somewhat resembles a short strangle, meaning the volatility is between a strangle. It also sees 107 to 108 as its maximum profit range for tomorrow, so you might experience volatility within this range. Alright, that's that point. Let's move on to analyzing the indicator and the zones. You can clearly see the intersection of the buyer-seller curve. It's obviously leaning downward. Our upper agreement level is 110,500, meaning if we want to go higher, it would just be to fill that same gap, right? From 109,500 to 110, as shown here, and for our lower agreement level, it's 106,500. In terms of profit, and for our lower zone, as you can see, the agreement zone is the lower zone, while the upper zone is the disagreement zone. So here, based on this intersection and these lines, our movement still favors a move downward, toward 105,000 to 106,000. Let me show you the points. Let's look at it on the indicator and continue. Well, you can see that the movement of the indicator bands is also downward. The top is moving down, the bottom is moving down. So, part of this downward movement is, of course, due to this bearish candle. But since this is actually for tomorrow's setup and in line with the trend, the movement we're seeing is downward. Naturally, we'll consider the downward direction as our main movement, and the continuation of the movement will most likely still be downward. For the target, let's consider around 105. Let's update the zones and continue. Okay, you can see the zones. The movement of the zones is downward. We've pretty much touched the lower zone now, which is why we can now see that this candle, look, this candle has moved out of that hammer or inverted state and has gained momentum. So now, it can continue this movement. Continue downward and come down to see our zone at 106, unless in the remaining 30 minutes this candle turns back up and forms a doji pattern. In that case, the probability and chance of a reversal upward and filling this gap, the FEG, increases. Our upper and lower zones are almost equal. The lower zone is the area of agreement that we mentioned and is in profit, so there is a possibility of filling this zone. But for tomorrow, look, for tomorrow, just as we analyzed the overall shape of the curve, we are in a volatile phase, and right now we are around the bottom of this volatility. As seen here, we should naturally expect a kind of corrective upward reversal. My upper zone is from 110,200 up to about 111,300, the lower zone is from 106 up to 107,100, and my middle zone is from 107,900 up to about 108. Up to 109. And yes, as you can see now, the candle has gained a lot of momentum and is almost completely covering the lower zone. Alright, let's move on to delta and gamma. Let's take a look at delta and gamma and see what the situation is. So, here's delta, and this is gamma as well. We need to move this slider forward a bit, because by moving the slider forward slightly, the shape of the curve changes. In fact, let's check this out. You can see we have a very large gamma short for the ticker, and that's exactly where we are right now, around 107,600. At 107,600, we have a gamma long. 107,600. Let's take a closer look right here, at this exact spot, where the price moved and then dropped below this important level. At this point, we have what is called a weak gamma long position for the ticker at the price of 102. Break time equals 0.5s / of this weak gamma long then transitions and becomes a gamma short position, also at 102. Now, with this information, the downward direction is clear for us here, making it easier to understand the current market situation. This move is now a priority, having broken the previous level and low. We need to see if the price can bounce from the trend line. An upward reversal seems unlikely, as momentum is strongly downward. That's it for the gamma points. Let's move on. Alright, let's look at the upcoming days. If we add November 5th, yes, the curve's intensity, its downward entry, means more profit, so the bearish leg is entering profit quite strongly. If we consider November 5th on its own, you can still see that anything below 107 is in profit, and we're actually just at the beginning of the move. If we go to the middle of the delta, at 104,700, again, 104,700 is a bottom that has been seen, and for the week of November as well, yes. For the week of November it still basically looks like a call sell, where we might say we've already seen the top, around 112 or 113 is our zone. For the week of November 2, you can see that from where we are now, our delta is bullish down to 103. 103,500, that is, 103,500 is our floor. If this floor breaks, then along with the price drop, our delta will turn bearish. That would be an indicator for buying some puts, targeting 98,000 and 97,000. But until then, 103,500 to 104 is the floor that has been identified, and we can expect some support there. If it breaks, then we should look at 100,000 and 98,000 as the next levels. So for now, the move downward apparently could continue. If we consider the recent trades, again for November 7th, it becomes volatile, with the floor of this volatility actually going quite low. Here, we see the floor at 98, meaning below 98 it goes into loss, and its profit is set at 100,000. But even from where we are now, as we move downward, the delta is bullish, so anywhere in this area. Actually, look at its floor, because you see here, the red curve has a lot of ups and downs. Look, here it breaks at 104,800, here it breaks at 104, here it breaks at 103, and almost here again, you see the curve breaks at 102. So, at any of these points, the price might hit its floor. It does not necessarily have to go all the way down to 98. So for now, the outlook is downward. Alright, let's go and review the detailed trades for tomorrow. Out of 2,169 Bitcoin, 903 were bought, of which 242 were bought by Kale, and as you can see, 661 were bought by Pood, which clearly shows the dominance is in favor of the bears, and that's what's happening. The point is, even if we count the candles, actually about. If we go back about 18 to 19 hours, it basically starts from here, from right up here where the trades we're reviewing have come in, meaning put options are being bought, it's happening. Below 177, they're in profit, they're seeing profit. Right where we are now, if we look more precisely, you'll see that below these, at 176, which is right here, if you pass all of them, their average trades, this is what these put purchases have become, which have been realized, and the lower zone has also been fully seen, the entire lower zone has been observed. So, that's about the realization of the puts. Where were the calls aiming for? The calls were looking for a bullish move above 109,300. So, that reversal we mentioned, 109,300, let's see, for example, up to here they've been filled, this very gap, although this candle itself actually created another gap. Now we have to see what the next candle does. This was the target for the calls that hasn't been reached yet. Break time equals 0.5s /now. Let's look at the put sellers. Put sellers with 1,265 Bitcoin and another group of put sellers with 621 Bitcoin. Break time equals 0.5s /. There are also call sellers with 644 Bitcoin. Break time equals 0.5s / and put sellers, which is interesting, we're getting to them now. There's a bit more put selling, and now they're being realized. The put sellers haven't looked below 107 and 200. The put sellers haven't gone below that cliff, but now, yeah, we've actually gone below it. 157, we've hit that. But the put sellers didn't want to go below 107 and 200, so the selling, there's a bit more put selling, and now they're being realized. The put sellers haven't looked below 107 and 200. The put sellers didn't want to go below 107 and 200 either, so you could say our put selling, too, basically, has been realized. Where are the call sellers? 109. The ceiling that the call sellers have seen is 109. Right here. They've seen this spot as the ceiling. So, it seems like our move downward has happened, and we can expect a possible bounce back upward. Also, look at the RSI situation on the 1-hour chart. You can see that we We went through an overbought phase, came back up, and now it's entered the overbought zone again. So, we could see a reversal upward. The same goes for the 4-hour chart. It hit the 30 level and we might see a bounce upward. But still, the overall trend is downward. Alright, let's get back to the main trades now. Okay, so everything is clear. Look, if we move the slider forward again and see this oscillating pattern on the curve, yes, right now we're here. Look, 106 and 220, and we've come back to. Here, it saw the bottom at 135 and 300, then we went up to 155 and 500, and we pretty much saw the bottom. Now the candle is starting to gather a bit upward. Okay, let's go process this in the database. It bottomed at 1530, then moved to 1560 and 1550. The candle is rising. Let's check the process database. Negative open interest is low, so let's focus on high volumes. 10 Bitcoin and above, 58 trades. 15 Bitcoin, 17 trades. We can check the 15 Bitcoin ones. If you want, I can also check the 12, but no, the 17 is better, 15 is better. 15 Bitcoin, okay, here, yes, the strategies themselves are predictable here, which are basically short straddles. This one is a short straddle, and this one is also a short straddle. Also, of course, these ones operate on the same basis, but let me clarify, okay, these two are different. So here, we have a 100 Bitcoin short straddle. As you can see, we've already broken through its floor, which for a long time was at 107 and then 100. Now we've pushed downwards and broken through. Its profit for tomorrow is 109. This is one strategy, and here we have two more strategies, which might be spreads. No, these are different. These are long strategies. Of course, yes, their volumes are different from each other. The long strategy here has played out on the downside. It was looking for increased volatility in either direction, but the downside has materialized, actually below 176. It wanted the 100 barrier to be in profit, and now this one has gone into profit. Well, there are high volume trades here. There's a 60 Bitcoin position where a long call at 118 has been opened. Interestingly, 60 Bitcoins were entered in the early morning, actually at 1:46 a.m., and they've gone long call from 118 and above, which so far. Their outlook has failed, so now we have to see again what will be the fate of this candle, how much shadow will be left. This could send a message. Let's take a look, if possible, for a medium-term perspective. The outlook has failed. We have to see again what will be the fate of this candle, how much shadow will be left. This could send a message. Let's take a look, if possible, and try for a medium-term perspective. Alright, we're seeing today's entry trades for November 14th. Both sides of the chart are moving up, a bit to the upside. There's dominance here. You can also see the delta. Notice that the delta's penetration on the upside is much greater. The delta's penetration on the downside is almost half of what it is on the upside, which indicates that, in fact, there's more buying of calls on this side. But on the downside, we're also close to the end of the delta. You see, we could even go down as far as 100,000. There's dominance here. The delta's upside penetration is much greater. On the downside, the delta's penetration is about half as deep, showing more call buying on this side. On the downside, we're also near the end of the delta. We could even go down to 100,000, where the delta enters its bending phase and its price sensitivity decreases. So, on the downside, we're likely close to those floors we had in mind, and a bullish outlook for November 14th is appearing again. For November 21st, both sides are still being considered, and for now, for the end of November, for the end. From the end of November, you can see a more dominant bullish outlook here. Look, right here where we are now, notice the slope of the delta curve, it's low. From here, starting at 97, the delta again takes on a steep downward slope, but up to 100,000, the curve and the actual downward movement of the delta, along with the downward movement of the price, is minimal. Its intensity is low, so up to this point, we can hope that the price will find a bottom and bounce back. It seems there is still hope in the market, unless this level breaks sharply and we head below 100,000. Alright, let's go back and take a look at the liquidations. Yes, over the past 24 hours, you can see there's still liquidity on both sides of the price. The price is almost in the middle, and its distance from the liquidity. Yes, it's a bit clearer here, as you can see. Yes, up to 105,300, liquidity has accumulated here. Liquidity below 105 is currently low. You can see the liquidity clustering above, from 108,300 all the way up to 112,300. So, it seems like liquidity has gathered well at the lower levels. If we switch to the 3-day chart, again, if you look here, this entire candle down here basically swept up all the liquidity and collected it, and now the upside might actually be our reasonable target. So, if we want to set an expectation for the price, considering the straddle conditions we saw for tomorrow and the fact that tomorrow's put options are being bought, and the selling of puts has been realized, it seems that for tomorrow, we can actually expect a move like this. The price came up here, then dropped down. Even though the momentum of the move is strong, we could see a reversal to the upside, maybe up to 108 or 107,800. Down to the lower end of this zone, in most profit and loss scenarios. We consider the possibility of a bounce back to this area, but for now, the likelihood of a move downward is higher, meaning, for example, heading toward 104 seems more probable at the moment. There still aren't any strong signs of a reversal yet. There are only about 15 minutes left on this candle, so let's see how much this 15-minute candle pulls back upward. On the 1-hour chart as well, the movement still has strength and momentum for now. So, we can consider this scenario likely. That is, due to those calls, we might see a bounce upward to around 108, and then probably another move downward. Because until the end of the week, there still seems to be downward momentum. Thank you for your attention. I hope this was helpful, and until the next analysis, goodbye.